Drop it. So as will probably become immediately apparent once we launch the topics, I'm not in a mood to do like a fun drop it, which I said before the show. And then
it wasn't just that; it was like the internal, like sad monologue you must have had.
Yeah,
before.
you know why?
What?
Because I have an internal sad monologue.
Yeah.
And that is apparent because we're an authentic, honest group of hosts.
Yeah.
That group of hosts that I'm gonna introduce, even though I don't want to anymore. Brett Erlich is here. Brooke is here. No, I still like Brooke.
I'm here. Follow me on Twitter.
Follow her at Twitter at
there's
Brett
always
Erlich.
like hey, do you have anything going on? Yes, that's my Twitter actually. It's far more entertaining.
Yes, I am John Iadarola. Obviously, the show is in a state of chaos right now. Cenk Uygur is out today, but Anna Kasparian will be back. She'll be here for the second hour. She'll be leading you through that hour. Over the course of this hour, we're gonna talk about a few things. Of course, we're gonna be talking about the fate of Brett Kavanaugh, which apparently, at least it seems like it, has been sealed so far. We're gonna be talking about some of the attacks that powerful Republicans were launching at sexual assault survivors, even before Susan Collins decided to ratchet it up a notch. But later on, we're gonna be talking about stuff not having to do with Kavanaugh. We're gonna be talking about the environmental impact statement that the Trump administration put out. They apparently accept that the world is heating up, but they see it as a good thing, actually. We'll explain why. And then we're gonna close out with something light. Hopefully by then I'll be in half a mood to actually do it. And that is a study into Trump's Twitter activity. Should we be as worried about it as we are? That'll be what we cause things out with. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me on this first hour.
Thanks for having us.
Everyone also should stay tuned after the show for Happy Half Hour. Guest Bree Essrig. I had a little shtuck when we recorded it.
Okay.
But if at the end of the week, if you want to cut loose, talk about some happy stuff, some good news, especially in the wake of all this terrible news, see that you watch it, please. Thank you.
That's a good idea. It's a funny show. You're a funny person.
Thank you.
Is there mayonnaise involved?
Not this time.
Not this time, no. And by the way, in the second hour, we'll have some lighter topics too. Quite a few of them are not light after all. Oh, the second hour, actually, we have an update on a story Jared Jackson and I talked about on yesterday's first hour, actual justice in a case of police brutality. So that'll be a little bit of good news for you. And by the way, as we're doing this, obviously we come back from each break and we read some of your tweets and member comments and super chats. And today, more than usual, I would love to hear what you guys are thinking and feeling about what's going on in this country right now. So feel free to send those in and we'll be reading some once we come back. Okay, with that, why don't we jump into the news? We were waiting to find out what was going to happen with Brett Kavanaugh, and because we don't have a government of 100 reasonable senators that actually think about and consider every decision, we had like 3 people that we weren't sure how they would vote. And we came into this day thinking maybe they had been convinced by Christine Blasey Ford and Brett Kavanaugh's testimony, the FBI investigation that came after it, maybe that had swayed them. And so we're waiting to find out how they would vote. Well, very quickly through the course of the day, we figured that out. Here's a little matchup of 2 of those senators.
And you plan to vote yes tomorrow?
So unless something big changed, I don't see what would. But anyway, I'm glad we had a better process.
What did you think
of
of
better
House
process.
voting no? Mr. President, I will vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh. Thank you, Mr. President.
So Flake was earlier in the day. Senator Collins, we cut out the first 3.5 hours of her speech and just gave you the important part that she had been wasting our time with before you just say whether or not you're gonna put the attempted rapist on the Supreme Court. So those are 2 of the big ones. We'll get to others in a bit, but how did you guys react to those?
Duh.
Really?
And this is Flake's thing. It's just been his thing. It's kind of been, and it's frustrating every time. He is very verbal about how almost like against this and disappointed in this administration and this process. And this is not just regarding the Supreme Court nomination. This has been going on for the past 2 years. But if you pay attention, his tweets don't match like what he's done and what he's actually supported and what he believes. He is, pretty gosh darn partisan, and that's kind of what's important to him, I think. So I'm not surprised that he kind of put on a show, but then has been, gonna do the same thing the whole time. It's like nobody wants to look like Lindsey Graham, but you'll be him.
Just how sad and put out he looked.
Yeah.
Just like this, like what's the like you didn't do anything.
It's Halloween.
You added a week to this process, which yielded what? A pretty empty FBI report that by many reports seemed to be limited in scope by the president who tells the FBI what they can and cannot do. In this case anyways. And at the end of it, you didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you saw in his statement, he said we need a better process. He said it.
No, he
very
said we got a better process.
Oh, okay, even worse. We got a better process. Susan Collins, in her long speech, the beginning part of it, a lot of it was this process has become too crazy. It's become too partisan. First of all, at the end of the day, I really don't care about the process. I care about the result. But if you have a problem with the process, look at what end result of the process you have delivered to us. That at the end, it looks like the guy accused of multiple sexual assaults will end up on the Supreme Court. But you're okay with that part of the process. It was, the people were screaming a little bit, or there was partisanship. That's what you're bothered by?
There was a long part of her already long speech which made Christine Blasey Ford out to be a bigger victim of the Democrats than she was of Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Where she said, I love Dianne Feinstein. She would never leak it, but some bastard did. And in doing that, they made it worse. But so she does, Dianne Feinstein or whoever it was on the Democratic side went against Christine Blasey Ford's wishes in making this public. So Susan Collins is going against Christine Blasey Ford's wishes in making her accused attempted rapist a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah. You can't have it both ways, and they're all kind of, a lot of them with these speeches and these tweets and these announcements and these sound bites. You either believe she's a liar or you believe he's a liar. You cannot have it both ways. And it's all this like long drawn out discussion like, oh, she's such a victim to the process and this. You think she's lying. No. That's why you're like.
No, didn't you hear him? It's really convenient the way they have it. They have their cake and they get to eat it too.
Right.
They have their cake and they get to say, you're just confused, cake.
Yeah.
Your addled little lady brain doesn't remember how you were made, cake.
You're either too crazy or too stupid to actually know who tried to rape you. Yeah. And but don't think that I'm against women. That was the last part of her thing. Was that's the other, I guess that's the eating of the cake, is they want women to think that they respect them and trust them and all that, while saying effectively that they're either wrong or liars. But honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter either way, the guy is gonna get on the Supreme Court.
I mean, Flake has been kind of doing the same thing the entire time though. This idea, he sat there and almost in the same breath said, I'm not sure what happened. I'm really confused. I think we need a different process. Oh, yes, I will vote to advance. So I don't understand what any of that.
He's also such a moron.
Like right in the same sentence.
He said he wouldn't have been able to do this very brave act of calling for a week-long delay if he was still running for Senate.
Oh my God, that is sad by itself. The end result is sadder, but that was sad too. So look, we're gonna talk again about other senators and all that. I want to talk a little bit more in depth about what Susan Collins said because I listened to the entirety of it and aged as a result. There were a number of problems. So she went back and for the first, I would say at least 25 minutes, was just talking about all of the problems people said they had with him prior to all of the sexual assault stuff. And what's interesting is that I think the point of this speech is to sort of preemptively defend herself from GOP critiques that could lead to something like a primary the next time she's up. And so she wanted to explain all of those sorts of things. But she also went on the record on almost every issue where we're worried about this guy and said why we shouldn't be worried about these issues. So now, when he gets on the Supreme Court and rules exactly like we know he will, she is on the record naively predicting that he won't do what he's been chosen to do. I mean, there were a couple of issues that were the biggest. So she said, even before his name was out there were left-wing groups who were going to oppose him, as if, of course, there weren't right-wing groups that were going to support him no matter what, saying that they spent dark money against him. Okay, well, there was far, far more money spent on the right in support of him. She didn't say anything about that. She tried to present him as not only a guy who would respect Roe v. Wade, but in general, he's just a guy who respects precedent. Just really, hold on really fast. That she believes that he was put on a short list by organizations that are far right, radical, judicial like trying to push to reshape the Supreme Court, that he was chosen because he respects precedent just so damn much. That is what his judicial philosophy is just even-tempered. We're gonna continue to let things go the way they are. That is why the far right was saying to Donald Trump that you have to choose this guy. The best case scenario is that she is far too naive to actually be a Supreme Court justice, but I don't believe that at all. I have too much respect for her. I think that she is lying to you to defend herself from what she sees as a more likely difficult potential primary process next time around than any sort of general election concern that she has.
Yeah, and she's the last person speaking. And so she seems like that one who really, like whether she was or not, she's that one who really thought it over, mulled it over, and gives you this description. All I was gonna add to what you were saying is literally on the record, the head of the Federalist Society says there is no difference between any of the judges on this list, period. Like I don't care who it is, what it is, when it is. But that's it.
I do disagree with one thing though. She wasn't the last person who spoke.
Lamar Alexander?
No, there was one vote we didn't find out about until afterward. And so look, as frustrating as it is for Jeff Flake.
Before you move on to Manchin, sorry. It was just watching Susan Collins at the end paint him as such a sweetheart. That's what it was. She's just making it seem like the same thing that led him to be on this short list of the Federal Society. Like everything about this guy. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and look, and bear in mind, as she wants you to believe that she's really mulling it over and she's thinking really hard about it. Again, there is no scenario where they don't get a radical conservative for this spot on the Supreme Court. They're gonna get that either way. She is making the case that it has to be him. And she says that people's faith in the Supreme Court would go down if he doesn't make it on the Supreme Court. This guy that ranted and raved and cried and sniffled his way through his testimony, that if that guy doesn't get on, people's respect and trust in the Supreme Court will be irreparably harmed. I have those fears. I have concerns about the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. And I think a lot of people do, but they don't run in the direction that she seems to think that they do.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on then. Jeff Flake, Susan Collins are voting in support of Kavanaugh. Lisa Murkowski says that she won't. And she said that early enough in the day that it provided, I guess, some hope maybe that if others pile on, we can actually stop him. And we were talking about how late in the game Susan Collins was with her speech when she finally announced that she would in fact support him. There was one person who came out afterward, that was Joe Manchin, bold, strong senator waiting until he knows exactly where all the other swing votes are going before he comes out and tweets, "I will vote to support Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he calls himself a Democrat. I don't understand.
There's a long.
It.
It's a weird in West Virginia. Like there's a lot of legacy Democrats opposing, as being the people that you voted for. For example, like in the South specifically, like there was a long tale of the Civil War that resulted in Democrats in name being voted for. And like Georgia had a Democratic governor until whatever it was, 2004. And the only reason that it flipped finally, the full realignment of like the dying dog of the old South happened was because the sitting governor didn't eliminate but reduce the size of the Confederate flag on the state flag. Like there's a lot of legacy stuff.
Yeah. I think in the media and just in general, he's kind of talked about as this bipartisan politician in this red area, but I don't think history has shown that.
Well, I mean, when it comes down to like healthcare, he's on our side.
Okay.
And he does it in a very Joe Manchin way. I mean, it's tough to be Joe Manchin. I know that he gets a lot of flack, and it is difficult to be a Democrat in West Virginia. It is. It is to be elected senator.
But I don't think it's that difficult. So like the whole time this has been talked about as he is thinking about his political future. Can he win in November? He is being challenged, obviously. There's a Republican running against him. It ain't that close. It ain't that close that this is what he needed to do. And it's interesting to consider, what if Susan Collins had come out and said that she was voting against him? Would he have chosen to be the deciding vote that puts Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court over the opposition of the two Republican female senators? I don't know. But at the end of the day, he is voting to support him, even though he really does not need to. He is choosing to.
He was sweating, for sure. He was sweating all day, assuming they didn't all get together and plan this all together. But he did not want to be that person who had to make the actual choice when it came down to it, because he would have been.
Yeah,
It would have
but again, I don't think he had to do anything. I don't want to let him off the hook there that this is some sort of pragmatic thing. I think he is choosing to put him on.
I think that Joe Manchin could have gotten away. I said this off camera too. Like he could have gotten away in a very Joe Manchin style with saying, I just didn't like the look of the guy. I didn't like to see him cry. I didn't like to see him go up and do all that stuff. And they can throw another one at me and I'll go at that person the same way I go at every decision I do right here.
Yeah.
Like that's how Joe Manchin is.
Yeah.
And while he says that, everyone can speculate like it's just looking out for Joe Manchin to make sure he gets reelected. But that's his skill. That's where he's gotten, and that's how he's gotten it.
Yeah.
Can I just, like, something that bothers me and that has always bothered me, kind of when it comes to like these big decisions that senators have to make when it comes up to heading into votes. This idea that they are undecided until the last minute, and that almost like we hope for that, and that always makes me uncomfortable. This is far too big of a decision for you to really actually be flip-flopping on.
Like in that morning?
Literally, as you're walking down the hall, you're telling reporters, or you have your people sending out emails that morning saying he's unsure, and then as a public, generally they're okay with that because there's a chance, and I'm like, I feel like that makes me a little uncomfortable because I don't believe it. One, it's a lie, and then two. I don't want that. I want you. This is something I want you to be really sure about for a long time.
Well, they are thinking really hard about it, I believe, but I think they're thinking more of the political calculus of reelection more than they are what is the right or wrong thing to do. And
including Collins,
but especially like Flake.
What's Flake doing now?
Well, Flake is going to run for governor of Arizona, president of the United States, something like that. And so his political aspirations are not over, and he's carefully calculating all of that as it presents in this.
In each of these cases, I just can't wait to see who is going to challenge them. Whether it's Susan Collins when she goes back, or or Flake, whatever. And again, as we talked about in the damage report this morning, the idea that Jeff Flake looks out at America and thinks, I could be president. You moron. What do you think? You have no idea what country you even live in anymore that you think that you could be president. I want to attack Joe Manchin just a little bit more because he didn't just say he's going to vote to support Judge Kavanaugh. He also said, I believe Dr. Ford, something happened to Dr. Ford. I don't believe the facts show it was Brett Kavanaugh. You just need to put the last part because you don't actually mean the first part. You don't believe Dr. Ford if you say that she is so mixed up that she has no clue who she thought has attempted to rape her 36 years ago. And that she's thought for most of her life that this guy tried to rape her, and she is so wrong or so stupid or so crazy that she thinks that you don't actually believe her.
You're calling her a liar. You're just essentially calling her an accidental liar.
Yeah.
You're calling her a liar. That's what
this
you
is
say.
the
You
result.
don't believe her, yeah.
This is the result of many people on the right just putting lures out in the water that you can go gravitate to and get hooked on.
The doppelganger theory.
The doppelganger theory is one. The other one is less specific than the doppelganger. They tried that one. That was a little weird. But the other one was, this is a very traumatic thing. I wish he could provide more information. He seems to know for sure and she doesn't. Blah, blah, blah. 1,000 things. Tough to be a man in the world. They're coming after us, but 7 background checks, they just cast a bunch of lures. And Joe Manchin was like, I like that one. I'm not really gonna think about what it means if I parse it out.
Yeah. And look,
your constituents, the people who vote you in regardless, like they deserve your honesty, not these carefully like PR created like paragraphs. And we're doing so much just like breaking down just these ridiculous statements. Like I think that people who you represent deserve honesty. It's not even, I can't even focus on the frustration of where you're voting. It's just how you're talking to the general public. That's a problem.
And who thinks, leftist, right, doesn't matter. Who thinks that he was just actually doing what he believes? Nobody thinks that on any part of the spectrum. By the way, as soon as he tweeted that, this thing that he did supposedly to get some right-wing support, Donald Trump Jr. tweeted that he's lying Joe Manchin and all that. So great move there, strategically. You are this expert chess player that's teaching us all about how to stay alive in the South. Looks like it's gonna work for you there.
That is called, never mind.
Well, I want to say just a little bit. So we've talked for a long time about how bad Joe Manchin is. He faced a strong primary challenge, Paula Jane Swearengin, earlier this year. I wish that she had been able to beat him. He apparently feels emboldened to do whatever he wants for the next 6 years. He will be challenged again. Hopefully he'll be taken down. Now we've always known he's bad. There's a few others that are bad. But look at this. He is literally the worst Democrat. And he's so bad that he's not even as good on this issue as Lisa Murkowski. He's not even as good as one, possibly in their hearts, a few other Republicans. That's how bad he is. Now, I will say one of the reasons that it bothers us so much is that this was so obviously a case where you cannot justify voting for him, that he is the only Democrat that we believe is actually going to do it. There was one Republican who votes against Kavanaugh, one Democrat who votes for him. So numerically, the parties are about as opposite on this as you could possibly be. And even under that situation, where it was so clear, so easy, he has to go with the Republicans.
The calculus of it, state to state, comes down to people who are going to vote or not vote for these folks. People who call the numbers when the numbers are on the screen to get in contact with your senators, or don't call those numbers. And that's how they're making the political calculus. They are cowards, they are super, when most of them, when it comes down to it, they are out for their own personal interest. And their own personal interest depends on you telling them you're gonna vote for them or not.
Yeah.
We had National Voter Registration Day, 800,000 people registered to vote. I mean, there are more of us than there are of them. Numbers. They gerrymander whatever. This is a senatorial race. You're gonna vote for your senator, for your state.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it does come down to pressure. We know that with Lisa Murkowski, a lot of her constituents were putting pressure on her. And we know the head of the DNC, when asked about if the DNC would still support candidates that support Kavanaugh, I think like a week ago, he said, yeah, it's not gonna be anything that disqualifies you. So that stops some of the pressure from being put on Joe Manchin.
You gotta get out there to vote.
Yeah.
You got a month.
The entire thing is so frustrating, and I imagine again the continually, like, her speech was so insulting, so condescending, at the same time attempting to protect her from criticism on this issue. Like, I imagine again, as this whole process has been, if you have survived sexual assault, watching this, it has got to be so demoralizing.
She said in her argument that, oh guys, Kavanaugh voted with Merrick Garland 93% of the time. Well, Susan Collins, if there's no difference between those two, why the hell didn't you vote for friggin' Merrick Garland?
Right.
Yeah, she left out her involvement in that Republican scheme to steal that seat.
They have all left that out over and over and over.
And that's, guys, I gotta keep it real.
Yeah.
It's about them having control in Congress.
Yeah.
Everything that Mitch McConnell did along the way in order to delay Merrick Garland was because they have control of Congress. And the way to change them having control in Congress is for you to get off your buns and go vote.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I think people did a great job. I mean, the fact that we got the testimony at all was because of the pressure people put on them. The fact that we got the FBI investigation, whatever it was worth, was again because of the pressure. It, in the end, looks like it's probably not going to be enough, but it's also not done. I mean, there are measures to remove Supreme Court justices. It's far harder than I think a lot of people are being honest about, but it is still possible. So perhaps we will see that exercised at long last. Okay, we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, let's see what Donald Trump and Orrin Hatch were saying to survivors of sexual assault in advance of these big speeches today. After this.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment.
Everyone, what is that song?
Just a couple jams.
We almost never have songs that have lyrics. I was very weirded out by that.
Oh, go through APM Music Library.
Yeah,
our music library. Oh, it's great.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. It's obviously Brooke and Brett and myself. I want to read some of your comments first on Super Chat. Let's see, Mario Castaneda said, Manchin's vote on Cav. I better never ever hear another person say, quote, Bernie's not a Democrat, as if that means anything. Well, that's why I tweeted, what would it actually look like in practice to throw someone out of the party? And I know some people say, we have to be willing to have some diversity and all that, but I think there reaches a point where you should have a minimum standard. And supporting him, it's absolutely crazy. Okay, Lars Nilsson said, to my horror, Ann Coulter was a guest tonight in a primetime talk show here in Sweden, spewing her hate against Muslims, Latinos, and also to share her support of Kavanaugh. The rest of the world share your nightmare at the moment. I hadn't seen anything she had said about Kavanaugh, but yeah, obviously, I guess she supports Kavanaugh.
Throw her into the IKEA assembly dungeon of Sweden.
If only. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Member comments. Harvest said the Be a Hero website to replace Susan Collins crashed today because there were so many people crowdfunding. They've already raised $2 million. Love you guys.
That is amazing.
That's, yeah. I mean, some of that they'd already raised, but I think since her speech, after like an hour, there were $200,000 additional dollars.
Wow.
So whoever runs against her, and they'll find someone, is going to be well funded, I think. Gabby Marita said, Susan Collins sounded like a 65-year-old senator version of a girlfriend justifying the behavior of her obviously abusive boyfriend, quote, but you just don't understand him. When he's with me, he's such a different person, really. Yeah, she kind of said exactly that, actually. He reassured me on Roe v. Wade. Yeah, well, we'll see about that. We'll see about that.
People change, John. I don't know.
Like
I was going along with
60?
your bit. Going along with a bit.
I don't think so. Yeah, okay, I'll read some more a little bit later on. Very disappointed about the whole thing. Oh, by the way,
buddy.
There's a lot of different ways that you guys support us and hopefully will continue to support us. We have a new one, by the way, if you'd like to in a slightly different way. You can now donate directly during the live show by clicking on the yes button next to member comments on tyt.com/live. Also, another way to donate, go directly to tyt.com/yes if you'd like to support us and the work that we're doing. Thank you
What's
so
like
much.
the TYT version of every time you do that, an angel gets its wings? Like what's the?
No, it's that.
It's just that.
We literally an angel
Every
wings.
time
we
you
have a
do
great
that,
deal.
Joe Manchin gets stuck at a red light. Just briefly, but it still annoys him. That's the most we can
I
hope
want
for
to see
right
that
now.
dash cam.
By the way.
Shouldn't have asked.
And you know what? Hopefully, hopefully TYT will
has
be around
guns
in
in
6
his
years to support whoever primaries and takes him down next time around. We'll see. Okay, let's jump back to this morning. Donald Trump has clearly been feeling emboldened to speak out more aggressively against sexual assault survivors. It's been getting worse. Man, imagine how he's going to be now that he knows he has the votes. But anyway, he tweeted this morning about some of the activists who've been speaking out against Kavanaugh. He said this: the very rude elevator screamers are paid professionals only looking to make senators look bad. Don't fall for it. Also, look at all of the professionally made identical signs paid for by Soros and others. These are not signs made in the basement from love. Ew.
Hashtag troublemakers. Don't forget the best part.
Hashtag troublemakers. So he's talking about the protesters in general, but specifically the two women who spoke with Jeff Flake last week, and in a way that I can't even imagine how you could do it. Just very honestly and openly talked about what had happened to them, about their own experiences with rape and assault. And so they're elevator screamers, paid professionals. So I want you guys to talk specifically about this, but also let's just bear in mind, this is another example of the president of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, just makes up conspiracy theories and just says them. Doesn't care to find out what's the evidence that they're paid professionals, that they're doing this, that all of this protest is not organic at all. These women are lying about their sexual assault. Like, imagine if Obama had said things like that about the Tea Party or whoever.
Or if he
of course he
wore
didn't.
a
He would have
tan
been,
suit.
or he wore a tan suit, or if he did a terrorist fist jab with his wife or something like that. So we just accept it. We have a conspiracy theorist as president. That's awesome. But what do you guys think about
I
this?
just still have not gotten used to this kind of casual form of talking to us. Like from the Oval Office, I just haven't gotten used to that. Still just even there, and not even getting into what he's saying. Is just looking at this message. I have not gotten used to that yet.
There was the fireside chat, and this is like the fire sale chat. Like
I would say the garbage fire chat.
Garbage, yeah, the dumpster fire chat.
dumpster fire chat.
The dumpster fireside chat. Okay, let's
We
start
need to
that
film
bit
those.
over. Back to one. You remember the fireside chats? These are the dumpster fireside chats, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I know that some people are like, why do you guys get so bothered by this or whatever? Part of the frustration is seeing it play out after spending 18 months desperately trying to get people to realize how bad things would be under Donald Trump, and now seeing it every day and not being able to just put our heads in the ground and pretend that it's not happening. But to see, and I tweeted something about this yesterday, that we, as a culture, we look for the worst examples of humanity and we shower them with wealth and power and fame, even making them the most powerful person in the executive branch, elevating them to the most powerful positions in the judicial branch. People like Lindsey Graham, these are the most powerful senators in the world. They're the worst people that we can find. And to also have it shouted in our face every morning as this guy continually attacks, again, I guess even we're doing the story. All he's doing here is attacking victims of rape. The president of the United States is saying these goddamn rape victims are getting in our faces and I'm not gonna take it anymore. That is what our president spends his day doing. And that was when he thought he might not have the votes to confirm Kavanaugh. God only knows tonight or tomorrow when he does a rally what he is gonna say about Christine Blasey Ford. Like up until this point, it's been his supporters in the media and on Twitter who are calling them lying sluts. But is it impossible that the president of the United States would tweet that his son is gonna tweet that enthusiastically after this? Don't rule it out. Don't rule it out.
Well, because kind of like everyone, almost like a large majority of what I've seen, they don't want you to be not supporting a sexual assault victim. So that's why everyone's sort of kind of turning like a different corner and manipulating the conversation into, well, I don't believe them. If they were real, they would be worth listening to. If she were telling the truth, she would be worth listening to, and then we could have a different discussion on Kavanaugh. If these two women were telling the truth, I would listen to them and then they would deserve my respect. But everything I'm doing is okay because they're bought and paid for. They're lying. Even Jeff Flake in that interview with The Atlantic said, he kind of like alluded to the idea that they were politically motivated. That they, and so it's all kind of like, no, listen, we're not bad people. We don't believe them. If we believed them, if they were telling the truth, this would be a whole different conversation. And it's
just go listen to the elevator screamer.
Right.
Just go back right now and listen to the elevator screamer. Is she's like screaming uncontrollably? Does she look like does she sound like a paid shill? Right. She sound like a paid shill?
It's your own discernment.
How well would you have to be paid to act that well?
I don't know. I get paid as a Jew in media. I have a helicopter with Soros on the side that I jump in. I actually run up and just it's hovering and I grab the bottom and we just kind of go away into the nothing.
So you're doing well, is essentially the
I'm
question.
a page chill.
Thank you, by the way, for mentioning the Soros angle, because I actually forgot about that. Mostly it's about the hating the women who've been raped, but there's a little bit of anti-Semitism there too.
The biggest part is the abuse, that this is further abusing, survivors / victims of horrible behavior, horrible things. This is, it's kind of awful. It's awful to have this even come out of your mouth for anyone.
But that's
100%.
But that's how it works. It is the media savvy of the other side. Here's what happened with Christine Blasey Ford. She gave a devastating series of statements, responses to questions during her testimony. Devastating. But it wasn't as viral as like beer. I like beer. Do you like beer? I love beer.
Do you get blackout drunk?
Right, and so what happened in that case, in the case of Christine Blasey Ford, and in the case of these women who confronted Jeff Flake and gave both undeniably moving, of course they're serious, of course they're real statements. In the face of that, all that Trump did was wait 48 hours. That's all he did.
Totally.
And was like, oh, Christine Blasey Ford, where was she, blah, blah, blah. Where was she, upstairs or downstairs? She already said upstairs, you piece of crap.
She said it so many times.
So many times.
He said.
But he says, you're gonna listen to me now, rehash it, because it's been 48 hours. With the women who confronted Flake, oh, it's been 48 hours. Now they're elevator screamers paid for by Soros? Are you kidding me?
And he's surrounded, of course, by people who are never gonna disagree with him on literally anything. And but let's just briefly go back to the beginning of this national nightmare when he descended down that golden elevator. He was descending to a bunch of paid supporters. They paid $12,000, $50 a head to bring people in to cheer for him. Now, eventually he would get enough, racists and bigots and all that to come enthusiastically to his things. But at that point, he actually paid a group $12,000. People forget about that. And so again, it's projection, as it so often is. But I don't wanna leave you with his comments. I wanna leave you with the response by one of the two women that was actually talking to Jeff Flake in that video. This is Anna Maria Arquila, who said, "No one can pay for someone's lived experiences. The pain, the trauma, and the rage that I expressed when I spoke with Senator Jeff Flake in the elevator were my own, and I held it for more than 30 years to protect the people I love from it." So thank you again, Anna Maria, for what you did. I am sorry that unfortunately you and so many others will continually be victimized by this absolute garbage human that we've made president. That said, why don't we move to Hatch? Senator Orrin Hatch didn't want to be left out of this new trend of Republicans mocking and attacking victims of sexual assault. So when he was approached by some protesters earlier today, he responded in his own way, as you'll see.
Don't sleep women. Why aren't you why aren't you brave enough to talk to us and exchange it with us? Don't you wave your hand at me. I wave my hand at you.
When you grow up, I'll be glad.
When I grow up, you and I grow up. How dare you talk to women that way? How dare you? That first, how dare you? That's right. You just whispered us.
So as much as we are really frustrated with Jeff Flake and all that, his response sure seems good in comparison. He did that to them. Then he said, when you grow up, I'll talk to you. Remember, he's talking to women that, whether he thinks they're being honest or not, are presenting themselves as victims of rape. And he says, when you grow up, I'll talk to you. And then, as he goes away in the elevator, as condescending a series of gestures and words as is imaginable.
Like, stop. Orrin Hatch is Superman. There is like this steel fence around him. Like, do you know how long he's been in this position? It almost just like manipulates the idea that senators are in place to be your voice. He is just, he's solid. He's doing what he wants.
Gives no F's.
He's been able to do what he wants for years, and that is the response you get when people get comfortable. And how could you not get comfortable if there has never been even like a serious challenge? Yeah. I mean,
in his defense,
I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. They weren't attractive enough witnesses to him apparently.
Right, it's like,
yeah.
right.
This is the same. I mean,
he says that about everyone, and it's like he can say he can do what he wants.
He's 1,000 years old, and I don't say that to be ageist or anything. He's 1,000 years old, and he's been in his position for 998 years. Like that's what it seems.
Selected
like.
young.
Yeah, he was one of those 2-year-old. I don't know. He's been for 900 years, right?
And that comfort of consistently being voted in has allowed him this ability to not have to evolve.
Yeah.
To not have to change. He is the same person that he's always been.
Yeah. And one of the threads that's sort of gone through from even before the sexual assault allegations, people were putting pressure on Susan Collins. That was when they started raising money to eventually fund a challenger to her if she voted in support of him. They have always called it bullying, intimidation. Susan Collins told a reporter earlier today that she felt bullied by the sexual assault victims coming to outside her office. And you see there, and what makes this all like come together is those women have the gall to think that because they themselves have been assaulted or raped, that they have something to say about this. But while they came with their lived experiences, they didn't come with $250,000 checks. And so they don't deserve respect. Orrin Hatch doesn't care what they went through. They're not funding his campaign, so what's the difference? Susan Collins, has she ever had a lobbying group give $1 million to her and say, hey, why are you putting so much pressure and speech on me? Now, she's always been fine with that. It's just when it's real people that it suddenly becomes an issue.
And then words matter too. The principal of the elementary school cannot ever, no matter how horribly ill-behaved, be bullied by a kindergartner. Like, do you know what I mean? Just like the position of power matters here.
And that's
stop.
And that's it. And that's what they're complaining about.
Right.
Like when I hear people on the right be like, it's so hard to be a man right now. It's so hard to be in these positions. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That level of discomfort getting into an elevator. And it sounds ridiculous. I sound like I'm hyperbolizing, but that's what they're talking about up against the complete other side. I mean, put yourself in the other person's shoes. The idea of being raped physically.
Right.
Yeah.
Sexual violence versus these people are bothering me while I'm getting in an elevator.
The elevator that I'm only allowed
You go to
in.
like the buzzing
You
of
can't
flies.
get it. You will be arrested if you put your foot in this elevator. Yeah. The whining. They said for days now, this man's life has been destroyed. It's ruined. He'll never recover. It looks like tomorrow he's going to get in the Supreme Court. Ruined forever. And so I've been saying quite a bit recently that I see this as like the counterattack to the Me Too movement. And I hope that women come back at them even stronger. But at the same time, while men need to be allies in that, we also need to engage in our own war, which is to fight this whiny, pathetic version of masculinity that the right has taken up, because it is helping to destroy this country. They are so convinced of their own victimhood and that everybody's attacking us. The gay people are attacking us, the women are attacking us, racial minorities are attacking us. When are people gonna think about us who have had control over the majority of the Earth's surface for literally thousands of years? This pathetic weakness of the right when it comes to masculinity is something that we need to do something about. They're not going to fix themselves. I don't know, I don't have a solution, by the way. I just want to be very clear about that. I don't know how we protect them from themselves. But we need to do something on the left.
This job that they keep acting like they're forced to be in, being a senator is not prison.
Yeah, that's true. You could step down today.
To be hard.
But I gotta get on the phone and do fundraising. That's what they say. That's what they cite as like the most frustrating part of the job, and that's kind of what we're arguing in trying to get money out of politics. But like they act like it's like this giant terrible thing.
Right.
When the alternative is just don't make those phone calls.
Like over the years, some of you don't even show up all the time. So I mean, like you're allowed to just not be there.
Just
you're
go be a millionaire.
Manchin for the cloture vote appeared conveniently after both sides had voted. Like after the initial roll call, he walked in and then was like, let's scoreboard. All right, I'm a yes.
We can't get rid of all of them, but maybe we can get rid of Ted Cruz at least. That would be nice. Okay,
please.
Look, we have to take a break though. When we come back, we have some
Brooke
other
and I vote
topics.
against.
Sorry, you guys can keep
pass
talking.
The cloture vote.
We're not going to actually be broadcasting.
We're
You can
only
keep
going to talk
talking.
to John.
Okay, when we get back, I'm going to talk to you about climate change and also a look into the social media power of Donald Trump's activity on Twitter. Is he actually changing hearts and minds after this?